Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to go on a trip down memory lane and revamp one of my old Dungeons & Dragons characters. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, consider the fact that it has risen in popularity due to popular media such as Critical Role, Dimension 20, and even Stranger Things. If you guys aren't familiar with Dungeons & Dragons and have been living under a rock, or really not much of a nerd, D&D or Dungeons & Dragons is a TTRPG or tabletop role-playing game where you play with friends and you roleplay as your characters, and then you have a dungeon master or DM who will basically be your storyteller and create scenarios for your characters to interact. And a lot of your characters' actions are based on dice rolls. So if you roll pretty good, you'll get pretty good results. But if you roll bad, then expect really bad consequences. It can be really fun, it can be pretty disastrous, but that's the charm to Dungeons & Dragons. It's a lot more fun that way, it can be pretty chaotic, and it's great. It's really great. I became aware of Dungeons & Dragons at a very young age, and I actually started playing around the time Critical Role started their second campaign with the Mighty Nine. I didn't have anyone to play with for a very long time, only because the friends I had at the time weren't really interested or aren't much of a nerd like myself, unfortunately. Until my older sister invited me to play with her boyfriend and friends. And ever since then, I started playing Dungeons & Dragons with my friends online, and then it just became a part of my life. And as a result of my obsession, I've created so many characters for many campaigns, and I even created ones that aren't really in campaigns yet. I just have this desire to do some character creation, you know, because that's my thing, if you guys haven't already known that. And to start off with revamping one of my many characters, she's not really my first character, she'll be next in line. Instead, I want to do one of my favorites, and that is Cara the Blood Hunter. So Cara, I've created her for one of my husband's first times playing as Dungeon Master, and he ran the Waterdeep Water Heist. Fair warning, I didn't really flesh her out very well because I wanted to keep her simple for him to keep track of, and it was also kind of like last minute due to the fact that I didn't know exactly what I was wanting to play as, like if I want to play as a human, an elf, tiefling, and then what class am I interested in, you know. But I ended up creating Cara in the process. So with Kira's old story and old like occupations that you get to choose from for your character with the D&D list, Cara used to be a high-ranking soldier. I wasn't sure if she was part of like the Royal Guards or just a generic soldier, I guess. And she was very well respected, and I don't know if I wanted her to just be a captive. So she was a soldier until something terrible happened to her comrades that got them killed, and she was the only one alive, and she realized she was cursed with lycanthropy or werewolf blood. So with Blood Hunter at the time, it was still pretty new because Matthew Mercer, the DM for Critical Role, was the one who created it. If you're not too familiar with Blood Hunters is a class where you use blood magic. And I'm not afraid to admit that I like edgy things, and so when I found out about the Blood Hunter, I want to jump the gun on that. Like, I want to create this Blood Hunter, Blood Mage character. And so Cara was my very first Blood Hunter, and the subclass that you get to choose from, I believe there are 4, 5. Okay, so with my research, there are actually 4 different types of subclasses, or what they call as the Blood Hunter Order. There are Ghost Slayer, Lycan, Mutant, and Profane Soul. Since you guys already know, I went with the Lycan Blood Hunter order. And with the Blood Hunter Lycan, you can transform into your werewolf form, and with that, a lot of your features get heightened, like your perception, like your smell, your sight, I believe. Basically like your natural predator senses. so hearing, smell, and all that. And because like Kira is like a burly beast, she has a lot of advantage to like strength checks and strength saving throws, and then she also has resistance to like bludgeoning, piercing, and slash damage from like non-magical attacks that aren't made with silver, because I mean silver is the main weakness to a werewolf, and so it's kind of like very critical to have that if you want to win against a lycan or a werewolf. And then another thing too that I find is really interesting, and I don't know why I really like this feature, whenever a blood hunter is losing half of their hit points, they must succeed like a wisdom saving throw of 8, or else they will lose control and you will basically attack the nearest person, whether it be the enemy or it be your teammate. And I don't think I've ever had that experience yet. I don't know. Actually, yeah, I never actually had that experience, weirdly enough, and I was pretty disappointed. But then again, like maybe if I ever wanted to like bring her back to another campaign, maybe there's a chance I will experience that bloodlust, but I don't know. So after a long time of playing with my friends and my husband and finishing up the Waterdeep campaign, I started rethinking a lot more with Kira's designs and backstory, especially her backstory. I'm not gonna go too detailed with it, but instead of her being like an ex-soldier, I decided to change her past reputation to be an ex-mercenary, where she used to be part of a mercenary group called the Midnight Fury, and the way that I imagine them is very similar to the Band of Hawks from Berserk, except they're not really looking for fame and glory, and the leader isn't a piece of shit who would sacrifice their own comrades just so he can become a god or whatever the fuck. Anyways. And so the way that I envisioned Kira before she started joining the Midnight Fury is that, well, at first I don't really want her to be the typical edgelord, where kind of like Sasuke level of edgelord, but she has always been more comfortable working alone, because that way she doesn't really have to rely on anyone, and she can just focus on herself without anyone getting in the way. And so when she encountered a Midnight Fury, it actually started off with the one person who was very important to Kira and was actually her late wife, Mayra. So I decided to give her a name because she has a lot more significance in her backstory. So I kind of thought out Mayra being like her wife, and she is a druid, or she was a druid, and the way that I picture her is that she has red hair very closely to like the autumn season, where it's like reddish orange, very beautiful, long and wavy, and she has freckles, she's very soft looking, basically the opposite of Kira. And so how I imagine those two, they met, it was that Kira possibly was unconscious, probably like injured in the woods, and Mayra found her until Mayra got ambushed, and that's when Kira was like, time to save the day. And so after that, Mayra realized that Kira was injured and wanted her to stay with the Midnight Fury just so that she can tend to her wounds and then she can go like on her merry way. And Mayra refuses to leave her alone until she gives up and actually just sticks around. And Kira's like, okay, fine, whatever. And guess what? She actually ends up getting very attached to Midnight Fury and also very attached to Mayra. So everyone in the Midnight Fury already can tell that there is a bond forming between the two women, and I like to imagine Mayra always being sought after by other guys and other girls because like she's very warming to people, she's very nice, she's so sweet, and Kira couldn't help but feel annoyed and jealous about that, even though she never admitted to anyone. But like I said, I'm not gonna go too deep into the backstory for too long, but they do end up together, with Kira professing her love to Mayra and Mayra being like, yeah, I really like you too. And so they started dating. Like I said, I would like to go deeper into her backstory, but I'm worried this video will be too long, and I'd like to explain the design part of Kira at some point, and I don't want to bore you guys with just the backstory, especially if you're looking forward to how I designed Kira in the first place. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fast forward to the part where everything fell apart for her. Yeah, let's get to the very dramatic and depressing part of her story. So around this time, Kira is about about like 25 or 26 years old, and she joined Midnight Fury when she was around 21 years old. Because Kira and Meira were together for this long, they did have a cute little wedding together with the Midnight Fury, and it's just a private little ceremony, and it was beautiful. It's like, I imagine, kind of like a forest fairy tale type theme wedding, I guess. So with Kira being part of Midnight Fury for so long and became rather attached to everyone and creating fond memories, it became a surprise when she agreed to leave the group, only because Meira wanted to retire from mercenary work and just live quietly on the countryside. I wasn't sure if I wanted their marriage to still be stable or falling apart due to Kira's decision on leaving Midnight Fury or staying. But I feel like it makes more sense for her to follow her wife because of how much she loves her and of how dear she is to her, so it just makes more sense that way. Before the couple would leave the mercenary group, the Midnight Fury wanted to take on one last job just so that the couple can have some money to settle down and not have to worry about a thing. And this specific job that they really want to do, apparently there has been multiple beast attacks that happen every night, and mercenaries that took on the job ended up dead, like mauled and mutilated to death. So it was a pretty dangerous job, but it was one of those big deal types of job because it was like a high-ranking family or royal family. They were the ones that posted it, so royalty equals a shit ton of money, so it's like go big or go home, I guess, despite it being very dangerous. But nevertheless, they took on the job and off they went to hunt down this mysterious beast. And as they were like searching for this monster, I imagine the Kira and Meira were like having a sweet little conversation about how life would be once they settle down, like where should they settle down, how many pets are they willing to have, what should they do now that they won't be fighting anytime soon, you know, kind of like that. And everything went well until the beasts appeared out of nowhere and attacked the Midnight Fury one by one. And Kira, the race I went with, is human, and this happened at nighttime, so she doesn't really have dark vision, so it was really dark for her to see what was happening, but all she could hear were her comrades screaming in agony and dropping dead all around her, which just made her scared a little bit. Oh, not necessarily scared, but kind of like not flustered. She was struggling, I guess, because she didn't realize that the beast that they're up against is that dangerous, I guess. I don't know. They probably should have read the job post, you know? Just maybe they're not high level enough. Anyways, I don't know. And so because all of her comrades are falling like flies, she went to rush over for Meira, making sure that she's still alive. And when she found her, and just before she could save her, the monster, or this beast, dug its claws deep into her chest and just stabbed her right through the heart. And shocked and devastated at the sight of her wife's death, Kira became enraged and fought the beast with every inch of her fiber. Clearly, she was no match for this beast, but her anger, her rage kept her going until her body decided to give out. And as a result of this fight, Kira lost her left eye and got a vicious bite on her left side of her neck. So that's why, that's like a detail of why I have her hair kind of like on her left side, because of, you know, hiding the fact that she has like a bite mark there. And I guess like because of her severe wounds, she was about to lose consciousness, but before she does, she sees like the beast looming over her with its bright yellow eyes, and then it just vanished from her sight. And the very last thing she saw was her wife's dead face staring back at her, and that's when everything went black. But that's not where the tragedy ends. So yeah, so I kept the aspect of her old backstory where she's the only one left alive from this vicious attack, and that's also a reason of how she got the lycanthropy to begin with. And she didn't know that she had this curse until like one night the full moon was rising, and she transformed. And around this time, she was recovering in like in this infirmary room, whether it be like in the royal castle, I don't know, just an infirmary somewhere. And so when there were nurses around and she transformed, she just attacked them, you know, like because of the beastly act. Like whenever it was your first time transforming into a lichen, you don't really have much control, and so that's what happened. And when soldiers and guards came in, they accused her of being the monster that attacked all those mercenaries that tried to kill this beast. And so Kira, having no choice but to flee. And I guess around this time after she left, just so that she actually has some control of this lycanthropy, she does come across a group of blood hunters themselves who are werewolves, and decide to teach her and mentor her on how to exactly use this newfound power. And once she finally has like a pretty good grasp on her lycanthropy, she then would go on a journey to basically hunt down this werewolf or this lichen that inflicted her this curse to begin with, and also as an act of revenge for killing her beloved and her comrades. And I guess along the way, it's also kind of like a self-healing, because she has survival's guilt, and she doesn't want to admit that, and so she tends to push out all of that trauma and just focus on getting her revenge, whatever means necessary. And she's been traveling a lot, not knowing where this beast have gone, so I guess that's where, like, if this were still the Waterdeep heist, that's how she ended up in Waterdeep to begin with. But yeah, that's basically her new backstory, where the previous one wasn't even flashed out very well. It's just, oh, ex-soldier, comrade dead, and she got cursed with lycanthropy, and that's about it. This one, I wish I could have gone like deeper into the backstory, but like I said, it would have been a lot. I mean, if anything, I can just like make a Google Doc and just write down that backstory and just have that be ready if I ever decided to play her again. But yeah. Now that the backstory is out of the way, I can finally talk about how I designed my character Kira. So the only reference I have of Kira is this very old drawing, and it's just a portrait, and there's really not much there except like I put a lot of emphasis on the hair and her face, obviously. And so I was like, okay, well, at least I got the face down, but what about her body? What about the rest of like her features? And so it got me thinking, with the original idea I've had in mind with blood hunters and how I want her to fight is that she's a dual wielder, and so she has 2 scimitars, and with the stats that I mainly focus on were, I think, dexterity and strength and constitution. And so with her being so dexterous, I wanted her to, I guess, clothing wise, not have too much to where it would like interfere with her fighting style. And so I decided to just give her like a standard crop top, some tight pants, and then just some like standard high-heeled boots and some accessories here or there. And of course you get the eye patch, because like I said, in the backstory, she lost her left eye during her fight against this beast, and so you gotta have that eye patch. I mean she could literally just show it off, because I mean battle scars are hot, am I right? Oh, why I fucking said that anyways. And the one thing I definitely wanted to keep design-wise was her hair, because like I love drawing hair and I like it being voluminous, I guess. And I guess like because she's a werewolf, I wanted her hair to kind of like be I don't know why. Because she's a werewolf, I wanted her hair to be cool, I guess. And so I decided to have it be kind of long, like it's down like past her back and up her, like above her ass or above her butt, but she would always tie it in like a braid, so that way it's easy to maintain, and also to cover up that gnarly bite mark on her neck, even though like her body is like covered in scars. So the one thing about blood hunters is that because they use blood magic, a lot of times they, from my knowledge, I don't know, I could be wrong, but from my knowledge that they would actually inflict pain onto themselves just so that they can use their blood magic, because their blood is magic. And so the ability, from what I can remember from the top of my head, because I can't seem to find the character sheet for her and that makes me sad, was something like a blood puppet, I think, where if the enemy is like low enough, she can use like her blood magic to essentially puppeteer it. And I think there's like some limitations to that, to where it's not too overpowered, but just like basic things, I guess, like make it fight one of their own kind under her control. And then as far as like what the magic type, like what, like is it fire magic, cold magic, or lightning damage, something like that, whenever she like does her Crimson Rite, which I forgot to mention that Crimson Rite is what blood hunters use, where they infuse their blood or infuse their magic into their weapons. And so I believe I used fire damage just because like I think fire damage is cool, and it's probably like the easiest thing that I've chosen, so I was like, okay, let's just do fire magic. And so I just kept it at that. And so back to where blood hunters inflict pain to themselves or cut themselves, I decided to incorporate a lot of scars, whether it be from the attack or whether it be self-inflicted. She has a lot of them, and so I wanted to incorporate that feature because it just makes sense, and she's not afraid to show it off. I mean, like, again, her fighting style is dual wielding, and she's very dexterous, so she's very fluid in her motion. And so of course she would rather wear less clothing just so that she can have those fluid motions and not be restricted too much. And so yeah, so I definitely went a bit crazy with this one, because not only did I create a character sheet for her, I even created a character sheet of her as a werewolf, and then I decided to do like a portrait of Kira as sort of like a side by side between like the old Kira and the new Kira. I just got very excited because I like this new design of her a lot more, and with the style that I went with, I was very, very happy of how she turned out. And before anyone mentions if the first thing that came to mind when you saw her was Samira from League of Legends, that was not intentional. I actually created Kira before Samira was released, and so when I saw that she has some braids that's similar to Kira, I was just like, oh shit. And then she also has an eye patch, so I'm just like, oh, okay. And with the old design, I forgot to mention, I made her very pale, which I guess that makes more sense because like blood hunters use a lot of blood, and so that tends to take a toll on the human body. And honestly, back then I only wanted to color like more paler skins, because back then I really liked pale skins and wished that I had pale skins, and so I incorporate that in my drawings. But to me, it's like I wanted to step away from that and not be like the only skin tone I will ever color, and so I decided to give her like a slightly tan, I think olive skin tone, because I imagine that because she's always doing mercenary work and the way that she dresses, of course she's gonna have a tan because she's out and about doing her job as a mercenary, or at least, yeah, her previous job as a mercenary. And then on her left side, where you see like this metal circle with a green cloth, I wanted to incorporate that as sort of like a, what do you call it? Like a very special item to her. I forgot what it's called. What I wish I could have done was actually draw like a medallion symbol or an actual signet onto that silver circle, because it's so plain, and at the time I was kind of rushing it and didn't really thought much of it, because I just wanted to focus on her and I want to give her all the details, but I kind of regret not doing that. So maybe in the future I'll actually thoroughly think of a symbol of the Midnight Fury. I said almost said furry, fuck. And the green cloth is basically her wife's handkerchief. I guess like when Mayra found when Kira was like unconscious or injured when they first met, like Mayra used like handkerchief or like a part of her cloth or whatever, part of her clothes, and used it to like wipe her down or like trying to tend to her. And I guess Mayra's like, you can keep that, I don't need it. So since then Kira has kept it, and she made sure to keep it clean as well. Another thing too that you can't really tell because of her hair covering it, she is also wearing her wife's wedding band. I forgot to mention this in her backstory. After she regained consciousness, royal guards or just generic soldiers or whoever wanted to let her know that her comrades are dead and she was the only one left alive. And they gave her Mayra's wedding band and also the emblem of the Midnight Fury and also the cloth. And so she she found like a chain or something just to wear her wife's wedding band. And then she's also wearing her wedding band, it's just hidden underneath the gloves. And as far as personality goes, just by the way that I made her pose and the way that she smiles, she definitely has good confidence in her fighting skills. Like she knows that she's good at her job. She's not a bad mercenary. She knows how to fight, and I'd imagine her kind of similar to Dante, except Dante from Devil May Cry, except not too goofy like he is. But she likes to tease, she likes to make jokes, and whenever somebody decided to like make a comment, she'll just roll her eyes, or like someone is like saying, oh, I'm better than you, blah blah blah, and she's just like, oh, whatever, man, I know you have daddy issues, or some shit like that. Some like snarky remarks, but that's how I imagine her to be like. And whenever she gets serious or whenever the situation is dire, that's when, like, you know, she has to lock it in. And during her moments where she thinks about the past, especially her times with the Midnight Fury and her wife, she goes into like this deep depression, and she tries so hard to push it away because she believes she has no time to grieve. Really, at the time, life didn't really give her time to grieve. She just found out that her friends and her wife are dead. On top of that, she got afflicted with the lycanthropy, which she immediately transformed, and she had to run away. It was just a lot. She never really had time to grieve, and so she doesn't really know how to process it all, and she only knows to just ignore it, because in her mind she needs to find this werewolf, find this lycan, and kill him, because he took what's so important to her, and so she wants to do the same for it, or for them. Now, I feel like with the blood hunter group that she came across and mentored her, I want to say like this beast could have been part of that group, but later went rogue for whatever reason, whether it be through bloodlust or just for their own goals, whatever it may be. It kind of gave her some sort of clue where the monster could have gone to, and so that's where I guess her journey starts. But yeah, so these are the character sheets. So the werewolf reference sheet, I was a bit hesitant to start this because I've never drawn any like animal characters or any like anthropomorphic characters like this. I did draw like a portrait of a werewolf, but it's only like the headshot, not necessarily the full body. And so when I have to draw the full body, I was a bit scared. But nevertheless, I actually did my best at drawing the proportions of a werewolf. Probably not perfect. There's definitely some features I definitely need to work on because I don't draw monsters all the time. But honestly, I had a lot of fun drawing the fur. I mean, it makes sense. If I enjoy drawing hair, I'd imagine I would enjoy drawing the fur. And so, of course, her fur is the same as her hair, so I made her, so obviously it's like a grayish white. And then I have to incorporate the scars on her because, like, it wouldn't make sense if she transforms into a werewolf and there's no scars around. Because I imagine that those gnarly scars are pretty deep and pretty large, that you can't really hide them, I guess. I don't know. But I figured because she's a blood hunter and she's a lycanthrope form, why not create a sheet for that? And so this is what I drew. I also wanted to incorporate some like feminine features. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make it gender neutral in her werewolf form, but at the same time I feel like it wouldn't make any sense that way, and so I decided to give her some feminine features. And the amount of furry art, I had to do some research just to get some ideas of how furry artists do it, and honestly, like, I may be laughing now, but it helped a shit ton, and I have them to thank. So without them, I wouldn't have made this character sheet at all. I probably would have just given up. Cause like, I don't do this at all. But it was a lot of fun. I honestly, like, if I were to create more monster sheets, I think I want to do more werewolves. It was so much fun. It's nice to draw some anthropomorphic characters here and there, you know? And with that, here are Kira's character sheets as a human and the werewolf, and then kind of like a before and after with like her old design with her new design. I definitely had so much fun revamping her and actually doing this video because, for one, it's Dungeons and Dragons. I've loved Dungeons and Dragons and I wish I could play in a campaign right now, but I haven't in a very long time, and so I guess to quench my thirst for D&D, I decided to just go back at my old characters and just revamp them into something better, I guess. But I hope you guys do enjoy this video as much as I did. This was definitely a long one, but hey, it was worth it. I had so much fun, and there's a lot of comfort zones that I decided to step out of, like the werewolf sheet and a bit of that full body character sheets. I've done character sheets before, but I wasn't always too happy with how it turns out because it's either too bland or too much. But this one, it definitely feels good, and I would like to do more of these because, like, I need to kind of like broaden my art a bit more by doing more character sheets, especially if I'm doing a lot of character designs. This is something I should probably learn how to do, you know. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications so that way you can get notified for more of my character design videos or comic vlogs or anything like that. And for my next video, it'll most likely be more D&D because I'm in a huge D&D mood right now. So yeah. But hope you guys have a wonderful day, and hope you guys don't get bitten by a lichen and kill everyone around you. I guess. Anyways, alright, have a wonderful day. Bye guys!